G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and today we got a preview of the Imperial Fists. Well, after a set of getting started videos recently, it's time to turn back towards the darker side of the hobby, and that's looking at the quirks in rules writing which are negatively affecting the game. I was worried it was going to happen with the Imperial Fists because obviously I read all the leaks and had all the leaks provided to me, and I knew exactly what the rules were. I thought they might have tweaked them a bit, changed it up in the editing before it actually went to print, but no. As I scrolled down and I looked, well, I found out that Discipline and Resolve was the exact same rule. As with many videos of this nature, I'm making a video in order to discuss the rules because as a lifelong player, I think they don't work. And I'll explain why, with the hope that one day, people might turn around and listen to the feedback and weigh it accordingly. So with that out of the way, let's talk about how the Imperial Fists, thanks to this one rule, break the game balance of the Heresy in 2.0 on release. Whoa, hyperbolic, typical Outer Circle salt. They never like anything. Okay, save it for the comments section, guys. I need to break this down by first not talking about Imperial Fists. We need to go back to the original Horus Heresy and Book 1. Because ever since Book 1, all the legions have had traits. They are a series of special rules which are relevant to that legion. They give them the flavour. They confer soft bonuses and even negative penalties based upon the legion in question. World Eaters, as an example, had both a loyalist and a traitor trait, as opposed to this edition where it's just one flat trait. Loyalists had the Bloodlust special rule, which required that they must consolidate after assault towards something they can hurt. And if they failed a morale check in an assault, they rolled a d6. On a 4+, they not only counted as passing it, but they gained the Rage special rule. It was fluffy, and it combined the negative of forced consolidation with a buff that triggered if all goes wrong. The Traitors gained the option of choosing Blood Madness, which replaced Bloodlust, whereupon units with this rule have Rage by default. However, they must always attempt a sweeping advance, any target, cannot voluntarily go to ground, or choose to fail a morale check, and after they win an assault, they must consolidate towards the nearest enemy unit that they can hurt. This rule provides the benefit up front with fewer trade-offs, but has all those negatives in the rear. For legions like the Raven Guard, their infantry gained Infiltrate, their Terminators, Bikes and Assault Troops gained Furious Charge, but the army was restricted by not being allowed to have more vehicles than infantry with the Legiones Astartes Raven Guard special rule. These rules were either a one-off buff, like Infiltrate, or a situational buff, like successfully charging on the first round of an assault, giving you Furious Charge. The trade-off being less armor in this army, as well as one-off abilities. That keeps it fair and balanced. The Imperial Fists in the original Horus Heresy game had a trait called Disciplined Fire, where heavy support squads gained Tank Hunter, and all the infantry firing bolt weapons gained +1 ballistic skill. That would include, say, rapier batteries, terminators, and Space Marines in power armor. Yeah, situational on bolters and heavy bolters, but the Tank Hunters was solid. The negative trait for them was the Blood and Honor special rule, where they cannot fail morale checks, characters must issue challenges, but they get to reroll ones to hit in said challenge. They also gained immunity to pinning whilst within cover and fortifications, but as a consequence of those buffs, the opponent could force an extra game turn on them, so big potential trade-off there as the enemy has a last turn of their choosing to steal the game. Pretty thematic. So as you can see, Heresy 1.0 treated legions with both benefits and cons, and that's just 3 examples. It's relevant to all 18 legions, trust me. But when you hit Horus Heresy version 2.0, we get articles like this, and we start to see just outright buffs with little to no drawback, and the Imperial Fists take this to 11. The latest and greatest example is this particular trait, Discipline and Resolve. It's kind of similar to the old Disciplined Fire in that units gain +1 ballistic skill on all bolt and auto weapons. Thing is though, in Heresy version 1, that was bolt pistols, bolt guns, heavy bolters, and twin-linked versions of those weapons, and combi weapons. And that affected power armor. It didn't affect dreadnoughts, it didn't affect vehicles. That meant nothing crazier than, let's say, 3 shots, strength 5, AP 4, 36-inch range on a heavy bolter at ballistic skill 5. But in 2.0, bolt and auto weapons includes shotguns, rotor cannons, autocannons, reaper autocannons, Kiri's assault cannons, Gravis autocannon batteries, Predator cannons, Punisher rotary cannons, Accelerator autocannons, Sky Reaper batteries, Anvilus autocannons, Anvilus snub autocannons, Leviathan storm cannons, Kratos battle cannon and all of its shell types. Bolt pistols, bolt guns, combi bolters, nemesis bolters, heavy bolters, Gravis heavy bolter bolt cannons, Avenger bolt cannons, and last but not least, the Fellblade accelerator cannon. Yes, the Lord of War 100-inch ranged, strength 8, AP 3, 7-inch blast weapon with an alternate fire mode of 100-inch range, strength 10, AP 2 armor bane with exoshock 4+, and blast 3 inches. That's a little bit different to, hey, my Imperial Fists practice firing bolt guns from the trenches really well in the previous edition of the rules, to all units in my army firing any of these weapons do so with +1 ballistic skill. Not only are these weapons a little different in flavour to Imperial Fists firing their bolt guns with greater accuracy, it's essentially 2/3 of all the weapons in the Horus Heresy for the Astartes now classify as being extra accurate for infantry and their tanks, their dreadnoughts, their flyers. Ballistic skill 5 heavy bolters in Heresy 1.0 is a very different kettle of fish to ballistic skill 5 assault cannons in Heresy 2.0. Ballistic skill 5 heavy bolter infantry in 1.0 is very different to ballistic skill 5 Predator battle tanks with 3 assault cannons and a Predator cannon in 2.0. Let's just take a look at that example actually. A Predator tank in 2.0, pushing 200 points, or just over, is now firing 4 strength 8 AP4 48-inch range rending shots, as well as 12 strength 6 AP4 24-inch range rending shots, all of which hit on a 2+. For 800 points, you can get 80 rending shots at strength 6+, all hitting on 2s. That means that well over 60 of those shots are going to hit, and of that, at least 10 are going to rend. And you're going to cause about another 50 wounds on top of that. That is ridiculous amounts of firepower. That is not only a significant leap in power, but a significant leap in lethality over any of the other legions too, because nobody else has that. Only Blood Angels can get assault cannons on their vehicles, because it has to replace a heavy flamer, and only they and the Imperial Fists have that rule. Seeker and Punishers in the Imperial Fist, for example, fire 18 strength 6 AP4 pinning with a -1 modifier to your leadership, which is only 7 on Marines, at their enemies, and those shots hit on 2s. And they can also take 3 assault cannons and come with a heavy bolter default. Contrast that with another legion, let's say Salamanders, who their legion trait is not released by Games Workshop yet, but it's reduced the roll of the dice by -1 for attacks made against them on the to wound roll with Flamer, Melter, Plasma, and Volkite weapons. Not the strength, the dice roll itself. So if you need a 2 to wound them, then you've got to roll a 3. It still causes instant death, but they have to roll a little bit worse on the dice. And it won't affect anything that doesn't fall into those categories, which would be las cannons, neutron lasers, demolisher cannons, auto weapons like the Imperial Fists have. Also, Salamanders have the benefit that multi-wound or hull point units in the army gain it will not die 6+, which, who cares? It will not die sucks. Overvalued rule. In what world, though, are those two legions remotely comparable against one another now? Because if you gave them a mirror match, put the exact same units on each side, the Imperial Fists are just objectively 30% better. Because their shooting is just superior. And they've got better war gear options as well. So, One Legion now has a situational buff against a small number of weapons, most of which will wound them on 3s anyway and instant kill them anyway. The other just has a flat army-wide buff for 2/3 of their ranged war gear, and it has 0 triggering criteria. And that's the key here. The Imperial Fists train so well with their bolt guns that they can shoot a Fellblade more accurately. Some legions like the Raven Guard, they have one-off infiltrate bonus against armies that are now full of augury scanners which negate the infiltrate ability. And that's it. They're done. Special rule. Spent. But the Imperial Fists, all game. As many turns as the game goes for. 6, 7 turns. They just get rolling 2+ to hit all day. So this really is the crux of the argument. Nobody in their right mind can come here and say that just because the writers at Games Workshop wrote the rule, that it's a good rule. It's not. It's a bad rule. It's badly written. It's too broad in scope with no negative modifiers or downsides. There is no triggering effect that you must do A to get benefit B. It's just a you have it unless you choose to downgrade your weapon to something else. Or pick a unit which doesn't have the option of these weapons anyway. It is an everlasting buff, and it turns the most basic Imperial Fist Recon Marines into the more Dathan of the Raven Guard. Ballistic Skill 5 snipers. By default, all their tanks are better than the Iron Hands or Iron Warriors vehicles bonuses. Rules like this just disgust me, because they aren't a result of a mere oversight. They're a result of direct negligence in the game design, and it tarnishes the entire system around it. Where now one Legion is just better than you, and they know it. For those who care nothing about game balance, it's a total non-issue, but for me, I care deeply about game balance. I don't expect perfect balance, because such a thing is impossible. But you can get a semblance of balance. You can get into the ballpark here. But this is 2 different games right now, and it's a major fault. It needs to be rewritten as soon as possible. It's a toxic display of bad rules writing. It's detrimental to the system as a whole, and players realizing this are immediately going to have a sour opinion of this edition. As I said, in a mirror match scenario, Imperial Fists, they're going to win 100% of the time, because nobody's going to match them on the firepower stakes. The only way you're going to beat them is to get into close combat with them, and to do it, you have to cross through their superior firepower. The odds are not in your favour. Rules like this are the kind of thing that worries me about Heresy 2.0, because I can only hope that some of the leaked rules I've read were modified in the final release, and that's why I hadn't done a video on this before. I'd spoken about it with friends and expressed my grave concerns, which, to the credit of the people I associate with, not one of them said it'll be fine. Every single person said, that's fucked. I thought they'd modify them. Everyone I spoke to thought, no way, they'd have to modify that before release. And yet, what we're seeing over at the hip and cool Warhammer community with the 720 no-scope tacticals going on is this stuff dropping. Nothing changed balance-wise. So I'm dreading to see the final outcome here, because while I think Heresy 2.0 seems to have a solid core rule set, or relatively solid core rule set, rules like this ruin everything. And what's worse is even the reactions. Like, their reaction is one of the best reactions in the game. Because some armies have things like, hey, you get to roll a feel no pain for your squad. That's your reaction. Enjoy. These guys have, hey, if the other player's walking past you in their movement phase, you can charge them in their movement phase, and you get full charge bonuses in their movement phase before they can react to or shoot you, because you're charging them in their movement phase. What the hell? Imperial Fists. Who over writing rules at Games Workshop Forge World thought, yeah, that's pretty balanced. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. That's not balanced. And reactions as a whole are terrible. Once they've released all the reactions, because I don't want to go through and leak it all yet, once they've released all the reactions, we're going to go through with it. But basically, reactions boils down to do not use them, do not play them. The system is terrible. Games Workshop fucked it completely. Just completely fucked reactions. Avoid at all costs. Community house rule it now that, like, using relics. The community didn't use relics in the games of 30k in 1.0. Yeah, 2.0, don't use reactions because they were written by a potato. Don't do it. And I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out, that they are incredibly unbalanced. But anyway, That's my opinion for what it's worth. Yada yada. You guys figure it out for yourself. You've got the information there for you. You can see the trend that's coming on. And you think if you're on the receiving end of that, is that balance? I mean, compare the Imperial Fist rules here with the Space Wolves that came out recently, with the White Scars before that, and start to, do the maths. Put 2 and 2 together and go, hang on a minute. Some of these legions are getting some massive bonuses compared to the others. And you'd be right. Anyway, that's all from me. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I am Salty at the Salty Circle, and I'll see you all on the next one.